We'll go ahead and get started. 12:01 on my clock. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. I am Carrie Belding, and I am the Public Information Officer for the Office of Management and Finance and the Chief Administrator's Office here at the City of Portland. Before we get started with these folks here sharing information, just a couple of housekeeping items. So there's a lot of media in the room here, and we're also broadcasting online. So we will be able to answer questions after today's remarks from folks both in person and those joining online. If you're joining online at the end of remarks today, please type your questions into the chat, and those will be beamed to me so that I can share those and we can answer as many as we can today by 1 o'clock. We also have ESL closed captioning and Spanish translation enabled on the video that folks are seeing. And additional information, if you have not caught that yet, can be found at portland.gov/transition. And so with that, I will be introducing our first speakers, Charter Commissioner co-chairs Brenda Kita and Deborah Porta.
Hi, everyone. This is a historic moment for the city of Portland. Portland voters were heard loud and clear that they want an effective, accountable, representative, and responsive city government. Today marks a new chapter for our city.
Thank you, Portlanders. We want to share our deep appreciations to the thousands of Portlanders who helped shape this proposal. Thank you for holding us accountable, reminding us of our values, and engaging with us through 18 months of hard work.
We also want to share our sincere thanks to all of our community partners who helped us engage our communities and helped us lead a robust and equitable community education and engagement process. We couldn't have done this without our partners. Yes, personally, I'd like to thank my fellow charter commissioners who spent many hours in the last 2 years in meetings, briefings, public hearings, stakeholder meetings, reading and listening to thousands of public comments, all during a pandemic where we only met through virtual meetings. This is a very impressive group of dedicated and hardworking volunteers, and it's been a pleasure working with all of them.
I just want to reiterate what I've said before. This commission has been the most diverse and engaged group of people that I've ever witnessed do anything in Portland before. I cannot speak highly enough of all of them. As important as that diversity is, this process has also reinforced for me that we can't successfully govern from a place of fear and isolation. Our community, all of our community, are what make us strong and make us better. I'm honored and humbled to have been part of this effort. And now we move to the city's responsibility. Portlanders have set a new course for our city government. Now it's the city's responsibility to implement the will of the voters.
So, passing the baton.
There you go.
Thank you. So thank you, commissioners, and thank your fellow commissioners also. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the extraordinary efforts and commitment for a more equitable Portland. Because of you and the rest of the Charter Commission, thousands of Portlanders who may not have been otherwise heard were. And we're very appreciative of the work that you did and the way you did it. So thank you very much. And last night, thousands upon thousands more cast their votes, telling us that now is a historic change to their city government. Thank you for bringing your dedication and your expertise and compassion to this process and to all Portlanders. Really appreciate it. My name's Michael Jordan. I'm the Chief Administrator for the City of Portland, Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Portland. This baton and the transition that it represents is both an honor And I should say, a lifetime's worth of challenge, I think, for me and for the staff here at the City of Portland. My team is prepared to take it on with intention and integrity, and maybe most important, with urgency. 2 years from now, Portland will hold its first election using ranked choice voting and geographic districts. Voters last night approved 3 connected changes to the structure of our city government. First, allow voters to rank candidates in order of preference using ranked choice voting. Second, establish 4 geographic districts with 3 city council members elected to represent each of those districts, expanding city council from 5 to 12 members. And allow city council to focus on policy setting and engaging with the community, transitioning day-to-day oversight of bureaus to the mayor, elected citywide, and to a professional city administrator. To get there, a transition team in my office will implement changes that include working with Multnomah County to set up ranked choice voting and educating Portlanders about that new way of electing officials. Establishing a community-led process to establish geographic districts, and and allowing city council to focus on policy setting and engaging the community. Leading that shift in roles and responsibilities for the elected officials, and I might add also for city administrators and managers in city government. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, developing and continuing to work on improving service delivery to the citizens during this transition period and setting up the future council and mayor for success when they take office. In doing this, we will continue to engage Portlanders, and doing so, some of the first things that will happen is that we will be asking and recruiting members to fill 3 community bodies. 1, an independent district commission to establish those geographic districts that I spoke of. Second, a salary commission, which is mandated by the charter to set salaries for elected officials. And then lastly, a charter transition advisory committee to advise the staff and council on the overall process of transition. Throughout that transition, we remain committed to providing transparent information and seeking community input, with a continued emphasis on reaching communities who have historically lacked access to government decision-making. So today, with all of you, a new chapter begins for the City of Portland. As public servants, it is our job to carry out the voters' direction while continuing to deliver services to Portlanders that what they rely on every day. With that, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Lisa Watson, the City of Portland's Director of Equity and Human Rights. Lisa.
Thank you, Director Jordan. My name is Lisa Watson, and I am the Director of the Office of Equity and Human Rights for the City of Portland. I'm also a member of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and I descend from the tribes of the Molalla, Kalapuya, and Eyak people. Thank you all for being here today in person and virtually. Today's press conference, following an historic measure passing on Portland's ballot, is the first that we've held here in the Lizzie K. Weeks Community Room in the Portland Building. It's not an accident that we're in this room today. This behind me is Lizzie Kuntz Weeks. Lizzie was 33 years old when in 1912, women in Oregon finally achieved the right to vote. 2 years later, Oregon women were able to cast their first votes in national elections. Ahead of that election, 108 years ago, Lizzie Weeks led a charge to encourage Black women in Portland to register and vote. She went on to lead a citywide voting effort and drive in 1916. I share this with you because against monumental barriers and institutional racism, Lizzie Weeks worked hard to ensure that community members' voices were heard. Her activism encouraged civic and community engagement where it otherwise not have felt possible before. This vision of leadership and representation in policy development played an integral role in selecting and guiding this recent Charter Commission process. The city charter process intentionally focused on centering Portlanders who have been historically left out of City Hall decision-making. I echo my colleagues' deep gratitude for the Charter Commissioners, staff, and community participants' commitment for your efforts to center equity throughout your work. Today, we're inviting Portlanders to continue the tradition of civic engagement, and we're committing to keeping the city's core values at the center of the work moving forward. 3 of our city's core values are equity, anti-racism, and transparency. As we continue the work to institutionalize racial equity, remove barriers, build trust with the community, and engage with Portlanders all across the city, it's not lost on us how significant Lizzie Weeks' community-driven efforts to involve Portlanders in their local government were. That significance remains today. Our office is committed to ensuring that the city's core values, especially equity, anti-racism, and transparency, are kept in sharp focus moving forward. The only way that we can create the city that was likely the vision that Lizzie K. Weeks was committed to is to ensure that we make every effort to create and uphold systems and structures that work for everyone that lives, works, plays, and spends time in our beautiful city. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Shoshana Oppenheim, Strategic Projects and Opportunity Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Watson, for sharing the story of Lizzie Weeks and for your partnership in this project. I'm Shoshana Oppenheim. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the Strategic Projects and Opportunities Team Manager in the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer. I've had the pleasure of working alongside the Charter Commission for the last 2 years, and I am the project manager for the city's charter transition implementation. At first, I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to the Charter Commissioners who developed and championed this proposal. Without their tireless volunteer efforts to push Portland forward, we would not be here right now. I also want to thank my team, Julia Meyer, Sophia Alvarez Castro, Diana Shiplet, and Diana Nunez. Because of their work throughout the charter review process, Portland voters and their Portlanders' voices were heard. This team truly embodies the spirit of Portland and the best of us, and it is my pleasure to work alongside you. And finally, to my fellow Portlanders, whether you supported the measure or you voted no, thank you for engaging with us and for speaking up. We will center you in our work every day and continue to work to gain your trust as we make changes to Portland's form of government and election methods. The opportunity in front of us is remarkable. Portlanders are relying on us to carry out historic changes for them. Changes to the way our representatives are elected and the way our city government is structured. It is an honor to work on delivering these promises while remaining focused on the core values that Director Watson just identified. The values of equity, anti-racism, collaboration, communication, transparency, and fiscal responsibility. We will center the Charter Commission's desired outcomes in our planning and implementation and measure the city's success against them. We recognize the importance of ensuring that these changes are managed effectively and strategically. And in preparation for today's outcome, we laid the groundwork to begin implementation immediately. We have our work cut out for us. To implement election reforms of ranked choice voting and district elections, we will immediately begin recruiting for the Independent District Commission, who will be responsible for preparing and adopting a district map, dividing the city into 4 geographic districts. We are working with our county partners to develop an implementation strategy to bring ranked choice voting to Portland. Over the coming months, you will hear more about this transition planning work You will see a voting implementation strategy, including education about our new election systems. More information about the Independent District Commission and our recruitment can be found at our website, portland.gov/transition. By fall of 2024, we need to accomplish significant changes to City Council, transitioning to a 12-member legislative body who will live and work in the districts that they represent, and an executive mayor who will be elected citywide. We will need to ensure that the 2025 council has district offices, that the candidates for office, for councilor and mayor, understand the new roles and responsibilities that are outlined in the charter, and that the structure is in place to support their work. Making sure that the city's business can get done and gets done well is our highest priority. Portlanders made it loud and clear. There is no time to wait. They urgently want to see change. They want a more efficient, accountable, responsive, and transparent city government. Our opportunity to restructure and reimagine how we serve the community is now. We will endeavor to design a more nimble city infrastructure, one that is responsive and centers our constituents and champions innovation. Transitioning away from the commission form of government allows for a whole city approach to systems and problem solving. Our 28 bureaus and offices will be pulling in one direction. Right away, a task force of city leadership will be charged with systems improvements, focusing on the needs of Portlanders. Our initial cost estimates for the transition will become more certain as we decide on our approach to the varied questions before us. And for more information about the budget, Jessica Kennard, the director of the Citywide Budget Office, is here to answer questions. To be successful, we need the community to stay involved. We'll begin recruitment for the 15-member Charter Transition Advisory Committee that CAO Jordan just mentioned, which will be made up of people who live, work, and play in Portland and are committed to assisting in the transition. More information about the advisory group will be on our website. So today, less than 24 hours after the polls have closed, one thing is certain: change is coming. Portlanders will see ranked choice voting in 2024. You will elect 12 council members from 4 districts, and we will redesign our city government to implement the will of the voters, reflecting the urgency of this historic moment. Thank you very much for this opportunity to move Portland forward. And now I'll hand the podium over to Director Michael Montoya with the Office of Civic Life, who will talk about the importance of community engagement in shaping our new organization. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in and being here. My name is Michael Montoya. I serve as Interim Director of the Office of Community and Civic Life. The Office of Community and Civic Life was founded in 1974 as a way for Portlanders to get involved in their local government. Today, our Bureau's programs invest in building strong civic engagement, community leadership, and support for businesses, organizations, and their neighbors. In addition to our neighborhood association support services and grants, our office supports youth, disabled persons, immigrants and refugees, and most importantly for today, the Advisory Bodies and Commissions program. The Advisory Bodies and Commissions program supports the recruitment and onboarding of over 110 advisory boards and commissions from every bureau in the city. Portlanders who serve on those bodies are the lifeblood of government oversight, planning, transparency, and democracy. This is civic engagement in action. I want to thank each and every one of those volunteers for their service to our city. Civic engagement happens whenever there are people who come together to identify and solve common concerns. Portland has a proud history of civic engagement through our neighborhoods and our community-based partnerships. And yet some communities have a higher degree of engagement than others. Portlanders are feeling our growing pains, and it is evidenced by the issues we see today and the actions Portlanders have taken to pass Measure 26228. Portland is and will continue to grow rapidly, and the city is looking for a resilient engagement structure that enables all Portlanders to be substantively involved in the decisions that most impact their lives. So you've heard today about the community-driven process that got us here. Thousands of Portlanders were engaged in developing these charter reforms, and we'll need Portlanders to stay engaged as we develop implementation strategies to prepare us for Election Day, 2 short years from now. This morning, the city opened its recruitment on its webpage for the first of 3 vitally important opportunities for Portlanders to be involved in implementing Measure 26228. First, the city needs to select 13 Portlanders to serve on the Independent District Commission, whose charge will be to prepare and adopt the 4 new geographic districts by September of next year. Applications can occur at portland.gov/transition/district commission. There's a little apply button, or simply call 311 who can help you with that application. Second, the Independent District Commission consists of 13 Portland residents who represent a diversity of race, age, gender, and geography. The 4 districts must, as nearly as practical, be contiguous, compact, use existing geographic or political boundaries, keep communities of common interest together, be connected by transportation links, and be of equal population. Application period closes December 1st, so please don't wait to apply. The second commission, by November 17th, we will open applications for the Charter Transition Advisory Committee, who will be appointed by the mayor to ensure the city implements the will of the voters. It must be representative of Portland's diverse communities and neighborhoods and will receive updates and give advice on charter reform implementation. Finally, since there will be several new elected officials and their staff, and these new positions will have roles not currently part of our human resource knowledge set, a 5-person human resource professional salary commission must be convened to review the salaries every 2 years for the 12 city councilors, mayor, and auditor. The importance of these 3 groups to help our city in this important moment cannot be understated. This is a historic opportunity for Portlanders to shape their future government for generations to come. I'll bring Director Michael Jordan back up, and we'll all be here to answer your questions. Thank you.
So I think we're going to start with folks in the room. And I know Carrie is monitoring the chat if we have other questions that come in that way. And if any of the questions are actually difficult, I'll refer them to all these people who are here. So yeah, go ahead.
This is obviously a big lift for your staff to implement this transition. How do you ensure that they're going to be able to keep up with their daily work that they already have in front of them?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, we are going to be going, and I maybe ask Director Kennard to comment, but we are going to council, and we had envisioned going to council upon a positive vote with a budget amendment in what we call the fall bump, the budget management process. And that the council will have a work session on that this Thursday. And then hopefully vote on that change in the budget next week. And so we are anticipating more capacity coming on board. And we have been rearranging our internal capacity to get ready for this for several months now. So, but it will take more. There's no question.
How much are you asking council for in the bump?
I think we're asking between $4 and $5 million, I believe, in the bump for this year, but I'll let Jessica be more specific.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jessica Kennard. I'm the city's budget director. So what we have funding set aside in the event that this passed, and our current estimates are that this transition cost would cost between $4 to $6 million a year over each year for about 3 years. The initial cost estimates, depending on the immediate staff needs, are likely to be lower in terms of initial staff cost needs. So the actual allocation may be closer to around $1 million. We're still finalizing those final numbers. But the money will be needed regardless for additional costs, such as setting up the new facilities for the new council offices. And so we're going to be working with the council to make sure that we set aside the resources that are needed.
Just just on that, for the CAO office, do you anticipate additional staff coming on later this year?
John, do you want to?
In anticipation of the vote, we have already started recruiting. Of course, those recruitments would have been canceled if the vote went a different way. So we expect to be adding to our team on the strategic project and opportunities team in terms of project management. And then, of course, we'll be looking to the best and brightest throughout the city and looking for support both internally and externally on both the change management and the process improvements work that we're doing.
Like you said, you've got your work cut out for you, right? And I know you said you're immediately recruiting for this independent district commission, but what is the timeline for implementing these changes? And are you confident you can get it done before fall of 2024?
Sean is confident.
Like I said, it's a big lift. There's no joke here. And we are absolutely committed to making sure that the district commission has the resources that it needs to complete its work by September of 2023. So if you kind of think of the work in a couple of different streams, there's the work to make sure that our districts are known for potential candidates and our current city council. Then there's the work of ranked choice voting, which we're very much in partnership with the county in order to implement that work. The 3 counties, that's our Portlanders in Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah County. And then there is the actual transition of our current council and then the systems improvement. So we will be working vigorously on each of those streams of work. There are the things that are required by 2025 to be in place. And then there are the things that we will be doing that follow those changes that are outlined in the charter.
I guess then what are some of those things that are required to happen by 2025?
Sure, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. So the district commission has to complete their work by the end of September 1st of 2025. 23,
Yeah.
sorry, thank you. The ranked choice voting needs to be in place for the 2024 election. And then the roles and responsibilities of our elected officials, those also need to be established for not only the candidates that are planning on running for those positions, so that you would see in probably mid 2024, having all of that ironed out as to what all those roles and responsibilities, how they're going to do their work, and then we'll be establishing those district offices.
And salary commission.
Oh, of course, and the salary commission, so we know how much we're going to pay them. Yes.
So specifically with the 3 oversight and advisory committees, can you just walk us through again who appoints members for each of those groups and the work that they ultimately produce? Does it need council approval to be finalized?
Thank you. We are asking council to approve, the charter requires council approval of the independent district commission and the salary commission.
Of their final work or the members themselves?
Of the members of themselves. The independent district commission has the authority to develop a plan. And if the majority of them, is it nine people?
13.
No, but the 9 people approve the plan, then the plan is adopted. So they are completely independent and we'll be staffing them up accordingly. Then the Charter Transition Advisory Committee, that is not required in the charter, but it is required by the project in order for us to have integrity and for us to have the community engaged. So that we are also asking council to approve, to the mayor to appoint, council to approve, because we really want the council to be part of the process in selecting who is advising the city in our transition work. The salary commission, the first salary commission is appointed by the mayor. Subsequently, you'll see that role, that commission appointed by the chief administrator, the city administrator.
There's 2 commissions for salary commission?
One, but they'll be appointed every biennium in order to keep up with salaries as salary changes.
So there'll be a new commission convened biennially, is that right?
Correct.
First one appointed by the mayor. From then on, appointed by the city administrator to set salaries.
And we have a fact sheet on the on the districting commission the independent district commission, as well as I think all three commissions. Is that right, Sophia? Yeah, so we can send you a fact sheet on each of those.
Are there specific requirements that council is going to be as far as the applicants for the wrong governance?
So there are the requirements in the charter, and I'm looking to the charter commissioners to make sure I've got this all right. So there are the requirements in the charter that they represent Portland's diverse communities, and that they're demographically, geographically, and there's diversity there. So that's the requirement. If applicants have experience with districting, if they have experience in community, I think all of those things would be attractive to the council and looking at their applications. But I think that do you want to speak to what the Charter Commission was expecting in terms of the district commission?
I think it's really about.
Michael, maybe this is a follow-up question. You said, these districts need to be contiguous. They can't separate communities intentionally. They can't separate voting blocks intentionally. If 9 out of these 13, is it 13 members? Okay. If 9 out of 13 pass it, is there any ability to veto by council if they see these districts? And again, this is sort of projecting the worst case scenario, but let's say they're just crazy lines.
Mike, can you repeat this question for viewers?
Oh, sure. The question is, if I got it right, once the commission for districting is formed and they vote on a scheme for districting, is there any way to override that or appeal it? Or is that decision completely final, since there are criteria that need to be met? And this is the first time we will have done this here, but it is not the first time it's ever been done, right? In Oregon or anywhere else. So my understanding is that there are certain constitutional requirements for districts when you form them. And they're the ones that Michael laid out generally about them being, first of all, population wise, they have to be equal. And then otherwise, you need to try to keep communities together, not separate them. You cannot make decisions about districting by protected class in any way that disadvantages a class. So there are certain legal requirements for districting. So if it was a really kind of wacko decision, I'm assuming it could be taken to court and a judge could say, does it meet the test or not?
Would the city attorney review that redistricting?
I'm not only review, but advise along the way.
So in terms of additional cost for implementing this new form of government, outside the first 3 years, there's a ballpark figure there. But we've gotten this estimate from anywhere from $900,000 a year to $8.7 million a year. When can we expect to get a better estimate, more exact estimate within this 3-year timeline?
So there are a variety of different milestones over the next 3 years that contain decisions that will impact that estimate. One of them is related to ranked choice voting. And as we get more familiar with the software needs, the implementation costs, the ongoing software costs, working with the county, we'll know more. And so I would expect to know more about that in 2023 as we're preparing for 2024. The big fluctuation in cost is due to decisions related to staffing size for the new 12 council offices. So the decisions for that will probably take place, I would think, in 2023 or 2024 at the latest. And that will be the largest determinant of sort of the cost, because if you increase the size of one council office by one staff person, that's 12 people across all staff.
Is that the salary commission's decision there?
That is not the salary commission's decision. The salary sets the salaries for the elected
So
officials.
who's making that decision then?
We'll be looking at best practices from other models that are similar to what Portland's moving into. And I think that we'll be using our HR partners in order to help set those salaries.
What are some of those best practices?
Well, let's think about the fact that the job description is going to change, right? Currently, commissioners not only act as the legislative body for the city, but they also act as chief administrators of a number of bureaus that they're assigned. So that that administrative role will leave. They are going to have a role that is now shifting towards being a full-time legislative body and interacting with their newly formed districts and being representative of those districts. So what we're going to have to do is ascertain, so what kind of staffing do you need to do that job and do it well? And Jessica's absolutely right. We're going to have 12 folks, all elected body. We're going to have to, try to treat them relatively similarly across the whole city. So the acquisition of space, the thinking about what roles actually have to be played in my preference maybe, that those three offices be relatively together so that you might be able to share certain responsibilities that are necessary to run a political office. So again, just to Jessica's point, a bunch of decisions that will need to be made along the way, particularly as we move into the 24-25 budget, because during that budget year, we will have to implement and experience those costs. So as we prepare for that 24-25 budget, we'll be going through all of these kinds of decisions about how, and only then will you know, okay, it's going to cost about this much every year to run the place. So a lot of decisions to be made along the way. Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
I want to chime in with a viewer question that's related to this. So where will the additional commissioners have their offices? I think that's really good.
So we'll need to have the work of the district commission completed before we know what the districts are. Once we have that information, then we'll be able to cite the location of the district offices within those districts. The intention, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the main office for the counselors under the new form of government is in their districts. And so once we complete the districting process, we will have more information and that will feed into the location selection.
You've had your head up for a while. Go ahead.
So how often will you revisit the districts to see that they're still in line with what needs to be in place?
I believe every 10 years, the way districts are revisited across the entire state. So we will have a mandate that decennially, every 10 years, we'll revisit because obviously populations will change and move around. And so there'll be a new commission brought into place to look at districts and review them. Go ahead.
So what is the scope of work for the Charter Transition Committee? For instance, would they be tackling questions about how many staff per council member? Or would they be looking at small donor elections, donations, and whether that should be changed?
Yes. I'm being facetious. I think, and please correct me, Shoshana, but I think we're bringing a group of citizens together to really advise us on all aspects. When obviously a ton of work to do, as you've heard, and we'll want to know on a consistent basis, how is this landing with citizens and what are people hearing, and advising us on best ways to get into the community and get more feedback on a number of different topics, but really as an umbrella, the whole effort.
And I think that our website will be up to date pretty shortly on the roles and responsibilities of the Charter Transition Advisory Committee. It is exactly that. How do we do our work well? When we have tough questions that we're not able to answer ourselves, we will go to the community to ask for their input. Are we on the right track, wrong track to implementing the voters' will?
I ask you guys, sorry if I'm sort of a broken record, but to just walk us through the advisory committees real quick, number of members, who's going to appoint them, who has to confirm them or approve them, and then what sort of majority that is on the website or something.
Is it all on the website? I just want to make sure. I'm happy to go run through it, but I just wonder if.
Yeah, all the details on the Independent District Commission are already up. There's a general overview of the other two, and then more detailed information on those two will be coming soon.
And to answer your question, so in addition to the information that'll be on our website, so the Community Transition Advisory Committee, 15 members, appointed by the mayor, approved by the city council. We've kind of talked about their roles and responsibilities, people who live, work, and play and have an interest in advancing the transition. The Independent District Commission, 13 members, appointed by the mayor, approved by the council. They have that independent work of developing the 4 districts. The Salary Commission, 5 members, appointed by the mayor for the first Salary Commission. And then they will be providing recommendations on the salaries for the counselors, the mayor, and the auditor. Did I get that?
They have the authority, you said they'll be providing recommendations on salaries. Who is the official say on what the salaries are?
You know, I'll have to refer to the charter on that. I believe they make that recommendation to the CAO to be included in the budget, but I'll have to review the charter to clarify that.
And sorry, do the co-chairs, do you guys know the answer to that?
That seems right, but.
Yeah, I'm happy to review the charter and get back to you on that.
Follow up on this. I have another question. How and when will the city administrator be hired and decided?
Shorter answer is we don't know. But I believe that that will be an obviously new and pivotal role in the future of the city. All city employees, except for the city attorney and the chief of police, will report up to the city administrator by the charter. And so it'll be a critical function. And that person will be accountable to the new mayor and in supermajority way accountable to the new council. So it would be my recommendation that the hiring of that first city administrator be by the mayor appointing and the council confirming that appointment. So we won't be hiring a new city administrator before the new council and new mayor are seated in January 2025. I haven't looked this way in a long time. Yeah.
Who will decide what districts will vote in presidential elections and which ones will vote in the midterms, and what will that decision be based on?
That's outlined in the charter, and the charter commissioners had a preference for those districts that had been historically underrepresented in city council, but those districts vote in the presidential election. So we will name those underrepresented districts 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 will be in the midterms. Or in other words, they'll be with the governor.
It sounds like you still have some questions about final authority on pretty important parts of how the system is going to work as far as committees go, as far as salaries. I guess within that ambiguity, who at this point has the authority to kind of pull those levers? I guess I'm just confused about where ultimate authority rests in some of these decisions.
Repeat that question.
Sure. The question was, where does ultimate authority lie on many of these decisions that will need to be made? And my take, if the answer is explicitly in the charter, then we will do explicitly what the charter says. If the language is ambiguous or it doesn't exist at all, then we will have to work with the city council. The current city council, don't forget, is still in office and will be there until the end of 2024. And they are still the authority for this city. And so 3 votes by council means we do what council says, unless it's explicitly laid out in the charter. So that's where the ultimate authority in the city lies for the next 2 years.
Does a 12-person city council still plan to meet at City Hall in council chambers?
That's a really tough question. Currently, the city council chamber in City Hall is not set up for 12 people to sit at the dais. So we'll have to be thinking about how will we utilize that chamber in the future? What will the costs of any kind of renovations be? Will they take longer than when January of 2025 comes, when they have to start doing business? If you haven't noticed, we have quite a bit of space in this building. So we have some options about how to deal with an interim chamber or whatever. So good question and a tough one that we're going to have to deal with about how do you seat 12 counselors and a mayor and all the rest of the staff that support them in a chamber that the public has access to also and can participate. So hang on. I didn't know if anybody over here, I keep looking this way. So, go ahead.
Can I ask, how long have you guys, especially in your office, been preparing for the possibility of this passing? Has it been 6 months? Has it been really the past week that you guys focused on next steps? Could you give me a sense of like how much work has gone into the preparation for?
Shoshana's been preparing for this for years.
Before the charter
No,
commission.
go ahead.
Well, so, I mean, we really knew what the proposal was in June. So once we knew what the proposal was, we started really diving into those components. But like I said before, we have been working alongside with the Charter Commission. So if they're talking about districts, we're learning about districts. How would that work? They're talking about ranked choice voting. We're learning about ranked choice voting and what the implementation strategies would be. So we've already started those conversations with the county related to ranked choice voting so that we can be prepared to work in this in earnest. Now that we know what the voters would like us to do, we can really dive in much deeper.
Just quick, I know before you talk about there is funding, I think, set aside, right, for the transition. So is the transition fully funded? And then is there any indication of, you know, when the new government takes seat in 2025, where the extra funds for that will come from?
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now, no funding has been allocated for the transition or the ongoing costs. Transition costs are one-time in nature. We have one-time funds available right now as a result of our general fund contingency and funds that were left over from last year as excess balance. So the council could earmark the funding that is needed, just about as much as is needed potentially for the entire change, but not all of that is needed right now. And we typically do have one-time funding available every year. So there is the option to do sort of a pay-as-you-go type process over the next few years, but we'll be recommending to the council that they set aside as much as they can at this point when we have resources, even when we have a lot of competing needs for those resources, to make sure we start off on the right foot. For the ongoing funding, we will need to identify that as part of our annual budget development process. Ongoing general fund resources are only available in our annual budget processes. That funding could be available as part of forecasted available resource. We don't know what's forecasted yet to be available. Our first forecast comes out in December. So that will give us a better sense of what might be available. If there isn't sufficient funding available to meet the needs, we will have to find the funding through reallocation for existing programs.
Will the mayor preside or attend the meetings during council meetings?
In the future,
Yeah, in the future.
the right answer is I don't know. The new structure is really a different kind of structure in that it envisions a legislative branch and an executive branch. The mayor is not a regular voting, participating member of council. The mayor votes in case the council has a tie and breaks the tie. My suspicion is that the two branches will need to work very closely together. Local government is not exactly the same as state government or federal government. The issues we deal with here are very holistic, community-based kinds of service-oriented issues. And it really is important for the executive who carries out the legislation to really understand and be a participant in those dialogues. So while technically the mayor is not required to participate with the council, I think practically speaking, for it to work well, they will need to have an ongoing working relationship for sure. Do you have anything else from online?
Right here. We have
Alright.
10 minutes remaining together. Any questions? Yes.
We're going to have a new proportional voting method, and that is partially laid out in the charter. but there are some details left to be decided about exactly how the surplus is going to be distributed in terms of surplus votes. Will it be fractions, percentages, and so on and so forth? Who will decide that? And what is the process for that to become law?
Good luck.
Gives me the hard ones. He said he was going to do that. And he did. Okay, so sure. To summarize the question is who will really decide the rules related to ranked choice voting and how proportional single transferable vote is actually implemented here in Portland. I will admit to you, I am knowledgeable about many things, but ranked choice voting, I am not an expert on. But luckily, we do have experts that are both in the community and nationally who have actually worked on these issues. So we are absolutely going to be drawing from the best and brightest and contracting with folks if we need to in order to develop a new elections code, which will be one of our very first deliverables, because we will have to make sure that all of our code matches the charter. So especially if we're talking about elections, we'll be developing a new elections code, adopting it. This council will adopt the new elections code so that it can be ready for the election in 2024. And of course, we'll be doing all of this with our county partners. As you know, that they just approved, or Multnomah County voters just approved ranked choice voting countywide. So there'll be a lot of coordination, and we'll absolutely know more about this soon. But that's what we know right now.
So we plan to work with a consultant like other jurisdictions have done that have implemented single transferable vote?
I have a line item for that work, yes.
That's going to be different than like an advisory or oversight group that gets appointed. This would be something that would be contracted or.
There's several areas that we're going to need contracted help in. We already, I don't know if you've noticed that we put out an RFQ to go to an RFP for change management support for the city, community engagement to support the Independent District Commission. There will be absolutely areas of this work where we will need to expand the city's expertise with outside parties to help us to deliver for the voters.
And I might add, this is, while this is new for us, certainly, it is not an unusual process for a charter to be amended, and then that needs to be put in place by a bit of ordinance language. So that language has to conform to the intent of the charter, but the details of which, as Shoshana alluded to, will be in our elections code. And that will need to be, first of all, advised by city attorney, but adopted by council, because it will be adopted as law for the city. One of the tricky parts of this particular process, as Shoshana mentioned, is that it ultimately needs to be implemented by the county elections office. And they're the ones who have to administer this election. So as we develop the city code to implement the charter language, we will be working closely with the elections office at Multnomah County to make sure we're all on the same page about how this gets implemented and administered in the course of a particular election. So not an unusual process to interpret constitutional language and turn it into workable code. But in this case, we haven't done it before. So we're going to be working hard on. Yeah.
It seems like whether it's the specific details of the ranked choice voting or whether the mayor is going to be there for the meetings, there must be best practices out there. And so I'm wondering if, how much you looked at that and if there were certain municipalities that stood out that help guide you to hopefully give you the answer.
Sure. And let me just remind you, we're not even 24 hours after the vote. So we absolutely have a deadline of when we need to implement many of these changes. And, you have my commitment, my team's commitment, that this is our highest priority. So there are many organizations that support mayor, council forms of government. They're national organizations. There's model codes. There's for us to draw from. So we will absolutely be working with that. And that's, I think somebody asked about, are we going to be increasing our team for capacity? Absolutely, because we know that we need capacity in order to answer some of these questions.
Is there any particular city that stands out that has something similar that you?
I was just looking at a city in Maryland that was a mayor council. I can get that, but, and they just added a city administrator. So I think that that might be a good analogy. But there are differences for the cities. And so we'll have to conform whatever best practices we find to the Portland way of doing things. So.
Yeah, I might add, I'm going to have dinner with the president of the International City Managers Association next week and start to talk about, so we got this new city administrator person. What does the job description look like? And are there typical ones that ICMA would recommend? And certainly there are multiple council manager forms of government across the country. So lots of examples for us to draw from as we think about roles and responsibilities within the structure that the charter has now mandated for us.
3 minutes left.
Anything online? Okay, good for us. Yeah.
Question. Maybe this is sort of a doomsday question, but it's been weighing on me a little bit.
Doomsday?
Well, we've,
Oh, I'm sorry. That'll have to be submitted in writing.
so we've got 3 commissioners who have been pretty outspoken against this proposal. We've got an incoming one who's waffled a little bit, but ultimately has said, I don't agree with this.
Mhm.
Is there a chance that they could somehow veto this or put I know they can always put a different proposal on the spring ballot, but what else could they do to sort of subvert this process? I mean, I guess I'm just thinking like, I don't know what the possibilities are here for this council, who for the most part has been opposed to this.
Well, that's a big question. You know, there's nothing that guarantees in a democracy people not acting well. But I've been doing this for 38 years and have done it in every level of government in Oregon. And I have yet to see anybody who would defy the language of a constitution and vote no just because they don't like it. No matter what your persuasion is politically, the vast majority, and I mean vast majority of people in elected office are there because they care about their community. And they feel incredibly responsible to the voters. So I'm not actually worried about that. We have council who has vigorous debates on issues and disagree vehemently, and yet they find a way to pass legislation and move forward. So does the legislature. So do other city councils. And so while your supposition is a possibility, I think an extremely low.
Sure.
Oh,
Just to remind you, we do have a website. We will be trying to keep it as current as possible. Portland.gov/transition. And of course, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you getting the story out to Portlanders. You know, I think that they've demonstrated that they really want to know about this proposal. And so you're an important part of that, of us telling our story. So thank you.
And one more thing, just to close, I think everybody knows how to get a hold of me. You probably received emails. It's also on the paper in front of you. So reach out if there are other questions to me directly related to the transition. Thanks.
Thank you all.